Hello everyone, Nathan P. Butler here, host of From the Star Wars Home Video Library and Star Wars Home Video Year by Year and Star Wars Home Video Trivia, to look at something that is not Star Wars. Repeatedly over the last year or so, I guess as new viewers have been coming in particular with stuff like Star Wars Home Video Year by Year, I've been asked if I collect the Marvel stuff also, and to show my Marvel home video collection if so. And now that I finally have one that I've been waiting on for a while in my collection, if you want to call it that, in my possession, I figured, okay, I'll just take the time to do that in kind of an informal way for those who are curious, and maybe this will be a chance for me to get some information as well once I describe what I try to collect, because I haven't really spent a lot of time with some of this stuff to actually search out the things that I might pick up. So we're just going to take a look here at my Marvel stuff. It is way more than I thought that it would be. As I was getting it all off the shelves, I don't keep it in here. I keep it in our living room on some old DVD, Blu-ray type shelves, but we'll take a look. The key thing that I want to note here, and what I try to collect, is that I don't try to collect every single version of the Marvel stuff, whether it's MCU or otherwise. You know, with Star Wars, tons of different versions. I mean, this behind the John Williams and the Skywalker saga, that is basically a shelf of nothing but solo variations from different regions, many of which are just from the US. The shelf underneath it, Rise of Skywalker, that's Last Jedi, Rogue One, A Force Awakens, and so on and so on. Just for those films, it's a ton of different variations, usually from within the same region. With Marvel, my approach has been I want to have one of each so I can watch it on physical media. And I want to have what I think of as the best versions of them, if possible, in terms of viewing. And for me, that's kind of a two-pronged thing, actually. One is that right now, that would mean a 4K Ultra HD Blu-ray of each. But it's nice to also have a Blu-ray copy to watch it if I'm not watching specifically on like our PS5 or something. But also, I am a big proponent and enthusiast for stuff on Blu-ray 3D. I love to watch films in 3D. Last night, I finally had a chance to watch Deadpool and Wolverine in Blu-ray 3D, and the opening sequence alone was worth the price of admission. It was amazing. You know, the skull coming at the screen early on with the teeth flying out. They actually did a lot of pop-out type stuff, not just the depth going backwards. I love Blu-ray 3D, and unfortunately, in most cases, you can't get 4K and Blu-ray 3D in the US in the same package, even when that was still a thing. So, in a lot of cases, what this means is I'll have two copies of a lot of stuff. I'll have a 4K copy and a 3D copy of something because they're not in the same package over here. Also, I would note that I try to keep up with the TV series releases as well. In some cases, there are TV series that don't have releases in the US for certain seasons, so I've tried to get those, but right now I'm a little bit wary of international shipping. I'm eyeing season 6 and 7 of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., for example, from Japan, but all the sellers on eBay right now are coming from Japan for those legitimate releases, and I have had a hell of a time recently with shipments from outside the country. I had a package coming with Star Wars home video stuff from a member of the community coming in from Hungary. It got to the US, got bounced back to Hungary for no apparent reason, and was damaged in the process. I have a package that I'm still waiting on from Japan, whose last scan was on December 30th. It is now February, second week of February. I had a package coming from Spain that took like an extra month beyond what was estimated, and so on. Right now, I'm just kind of wary of buying from individual sellers, not businesses outside of the US, because I'm having a heck of a time actually getting that stuff to come in. I'm still kind of crossing my fingers that Amazon UK will work out as planned for Ahsoka Season 1 and Season 3 of The Mandalorian, which I pre-ordered from Amazon UK and usually will arrive just fine. But with that in mind, that means there are going to be holes in what we're seeing, and it'll kind of be nice to know what holes there are in terms of something that's been released that I don't have a copy of. If there's something I have in 4K but not 3D, but there is a 3D version out there, it'd be good to know that. That sort of thing. So feel free to help me along, but just remember that caveat. I want a 4K copy, I want a 3D copy. That's basically all I'm really looking for these, and when it comes to the TV series, if it's from outside the region, that's fine. I just want to make sure that I have the ability to watch stuff. So non-MCU first, I guess. We could take a look. I guess we could start here. It's got everything like out on the table here and all over my floor. We can start with Deadpool, I suppose. So the Deadpool that I have is this one. The UHD Blu-ray digital package there. I do have this version of Deadpool 2. And also, remember they did that PG-13 version of Deadpool 2, so I also have Once Upon a Deadpool as well. And those are the only Deadpools that I would say are outside of sort of the mainstream MCU. We'll look at Deadpool and Wolverine later on. Of course, to me, a lot of this stuff is now sort of multiversal stuff anyway, so I would still consider it sort of tangential to the MCU, even if it's not officially a part of it. Likewise, we, of course, have the original Spider-Man films with Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield. So I've got a 4K set that actually has all 5 of the films in there. And then the only ones released on 3D that I know of were Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2, so I have the 3D Blu-ray versions of both of those. In terms of the broader, like, Sony Spider-Verse kind of stuff that they're doing, I do have a 4K of Venom. I don't know that there was a 3D version. As far as I know, there wasn't, but it could just be that I'm looking at the wrong region because there wasn't one over here. Second Venom, Let There Be Carnage. I do not have anything for Venom 3 either purchased or pre-ordered. I'm not even sure if it's out yet. Again, I don't follow this stuff as closely as I do for Star Wars stuff, but I should probably get a 4K copy of the third Venom just to finish that out. I do also have Morbius 4K. I do not have Madam Web, and I guess I'll also need to pick up Kraven at some point to finish that out. Then, of course, you got Into the Spider-Verse. I do not have Across the Spider-Verse yet, just Into. And I think there may be a 3D version of this available somewhere, but I've not acquired it. But I do have the 4K version here. Then before we look at X-related stuff, like X-Men related stuff, kind of oddballs here. So the Hulk 4K, not Incredible Hulk, just Hulk there with Eric Bana. And then for Fantastic Four, I just got one of those dual packs for the original Fantastic Four. And then Fant 4 Stick, got 4K version of that. For Blade, I've got another of those combo things, a little triple feature Blu-ray here, but then the 4K version of the first Blade. I don't know if the other ones have been released in 4K yet at all, but there's a 4K version of Blade at least. And something I really enjoyed, but most people have forgotten even existed, I guess. I do have that DVD set of Blade the series. And then for Daredevil and Elektra, it's another of those multi-packs, this time with League of Extraordinary Gentlemen here. Again, I want to be able to watch them. I don't know if the other Blades or the original Fantastic Fours or Daredevil or Elektra have 4K versions out there. I would assume no 3D releases, but for now it's just Blu-ray. Then X-Men related stuff, the 4K 3-film collection for the original X-Men stuff prior to First Class. Then I do have X-Men Origins Wolverine on Blu-ray. I don't know if there's a 4K version of this, so there's the Blu-ray version of that. For The Wolverine, the Blu-ray and Blu-ray 3D version of that. Again, don't know if there's a 4K version out there. For First Class, Days of Future Past, and Apocalypse, a 4K boxed set for those, kind of early in 4K. And then again, I do like, even if I have something in 4K, I want to have the 3D version as well. So I have Days of Future Past 3D. It's not 3D, but that alternate rogue cut, as it's called, for Days of Future Past. Then Apocalypse 3D, and then the one that was not in the box set, Dark Phoenix 4K. I don't believe there's a 3D release of this one. And then, of course, you got Logan to round things out. And lest we forget, because I often forget it exists, 4K of New Mutants. All right, then we'll worry about those tangential MCU TV shows later, including things like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. that were thought to be MCU, and then I guess now they're an alternate timeline and everything. So with MCU films in particular, again, 4K and 3D where I can, that did mean that I was buying them on DVD or Blu-ray typically initially, and then for many of the early ones, they only put out 4K later, so I got rid of the original copies and just kept the 4K ones, the new ones that came out. So Iron Man is just that 4K premiere copy there, Incredible Hulk 4K, Iron Man 2 4K, and then it was Thor that started with the Blu-ray 3D releases, so we got a 4K of Thor, but then also that original 3D release here, as I almost drop it, of Thor. Captain America, The First Avenger, that 4K premiere that came later. 3D version of Captain America as well. And then, of course, Avengers, kicking off the big team-ups. 4K and then 3D here. This is actually Blu-ray, 3D, Blu-ray, DVD, digital copy, and music. Lots of stuff crammed into that package here. Iron Man 3. Same kind of thing here again with Iron Man 3 with all the stuff including 3D. And then Thor the Dark World. Thor the Dark World 3D. Captain America the Winter Soldier 4K. 3D. Guardians of the Galaxy 4K. 3D. Got the pattern right. Age of Ultron 4K and 3D. Then we got Ant-Man 4K, Ant-Man 3D, Captain America Civil War 4K and 3D, Doctor Strange 4K and 3D. I always liked the packaging for this one here with the, slip and everything there. So we got Spider-Man Homecoming. I just happen to have the Steelbook. It's kind of matte as opposed to glossy here. Just cool enough, I guess. And then there was a 3D copy of Homecoming, but again, this is Sony putting it out, not Disney. And then the one thing I wish that we had continued to have in the US that we really only got the one time, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Now, I'm not a big fan of Steelbooks typically, unless I put them in a protective case because they slip around on each other and they're easy to damage. But this was the one time in the US that you got the 3D copy and the 4K copy in the same freaking package. That was very nice. That was also the only time they did it. And that was also the last time that Walt Disney Studios Home Entertainment actually put out a 3D release of an MCU film in the US. And then when you get to Thor Ragnarok, you get a 4K release in the United States, but no 3D release. And at that point for 3D, I had to jump to picking them up from the UK instead. So my Thor Ragnarok comes from the UK for 3D. And we got Black Panther, 4K US, 3D UK. Avengers Infinity War, I didn't intend on getting any kind of special version. I think this is the Target version. I don't care about store exclusive versions or anything for the Marvel stuff at all. It just happens to be where I buy it. So we got Infinity War here, which is apparently the Target version. That is 4K, 3D from the UK for Infinity War. Then you got Ant-Man and the Wasp, 4K. This one also from Target, I believe. And then the 3D version from the UK. Captain Marvel. You could tell I was mostly buying stuff at Target at the time in person. So Captain Marvel, Target as well. 3D from the UK. Endgame, just a regular 4K release there. And Endgame 3D from the UK also. But it turns out that Endgame was the last release in the UK to get a 3D copy. So you couldn't turn to the UK anymore to pick those up. So we had Spider-Man Far From Home, again, kind of the exception here with Sony being involved. So we've got Far From Home on 4K, and then for 3D, you had to go through Australia as an option, but at least it was still all regions, so no special player needed or anything. And then you had Black Widow, 4K, and at that point, the main place to turn for 3D releases became Japan for me. Because in Japan, MovieNext puts out these packages where basically it's Blu-ray and 4K and 3D all in the same package, although you wouldn't know it from looking at the front because the front just lists the 4K aspect of it. But if you look at the back and you look at the listings, yes, it has 3D available as well, but it's somewhat tricky to get because if you try to order, say, from Amazon Japan, typically they'll allow pre-orders of stuff, but after release, it'll list it as not shipping to the US, or at least that's been the case for some of these. So some of the Japanese ones I've actually gotten directly from Amazon Japan. Some of them I've picked up on eBay after the fact. But with Black Widow, yeah, 4K from the US, but that was the first of the Japanese packages that I picked up that again have the 4K film inside, plus the 3D film, plus the Blu-ray film, all in that same MovieNext package that just indicates the 4K on the cover, but the back has a row for 3D to let you know that that is definitely in there. So for Shang-Chi, picked up the 4K version here, picked up the Japanese version when it was finally released with 3D in it. Yes, I also know there's a bit of redundancy here, right? Blu-ray, 4K, digital. Blu-ray, 4K, 3D. I guess my pattern right now is just that I'm impatient. So as soon as it comes out in the US, I grab a copy, make sure I have a copy of it physically to watch. I like having the digital code to have that in my digital library and all. But really the US one becomes somewhat redundant when I get the Japanese one. But the Japanese one does have, of course, Japanese menus and whatnot. So like if I'm watching in 4K, I'll usually just grab the US one. But I do want to have that 3D disc, which means essentially double dipping just like I was in the US, despite the fact that technically, content-wise, I'm getting the same discs twice. I'm just impatient like that. Usually the Japanese releases come a bit later than the US, and then it takes a while for the shipment to actually reach me. Continuing on there, we have 4K Eternals, and that Japanese package that also has 3D in it. Then for Spider-Man No Way Home, we have the 4K version of it here from the US, and that one was even worse, because that one only got a 3D release in Australia, but it was region locked. So I picked it up, Spider-Man No Way Home 3D. It is amazing, but it's locked to region B. So what I've had to do is this is what finally prompted me, instead of just playing 3D Blu-rays on my old PlayStation 3 that I've got hooked up in here, or maybe hooking up an old PlayStation 4 to be able to play it, which are just like sitting around unplugged right now, I actually had to get myself one of those modded region-free or all-region Blu-ray 3D players to be able to watch this at all. I literally purchased it just to watch this. And as a backup, I guess, if the PS3 or something ever dies. But yeah, picked up a whole player just to watch this freaking thing. By the way, worth every penny. All right, then next up, I guess, would be Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. So the 4K from the US. Again, Movie Next with 4K Blu-ray and 3D in it. Same thing for Thor Love and Thunder. These versions here. Wakanda Forever. These here. Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania. These here. Then Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, again US. Japanese with 3D inside as well. The Marvels. And may I say, how much I appreciate that they've moved from this crap, at least for the Marvels they did, from this crap with that big garish red bar to just having it listed down here on the slipcover. I thought that was nice. They didn't stick with it, but I thought it was nice. Then, of course, as far as films, finally we've got Deadpool and Wolverine, US version, 4K. And then, weirdly, they changed the packaging information for Japan. This is the Japanese version of it. Again, it has the 4K version, the 3D version, and the Blu-ray version. But notice it actually says it at the top now. Prior to this, all the ones I was picking up said 4K UHD Movie Next up at the top. This one just says 4K Ultra HD, Blu-ray, 3D, and Blu-ray. I don't know if this is a change in how it's being distributed offhand, or if this is just a change in the packaging for Movie Next or what. I didn't really look too much into it. I just looked for 4K and 3D. And this is the one that kind of bit me in the butt, because I was waiting to buy it from Amazon Japan, and it took so long for them to actually put up the pre-orders that I missed it. Like, I was checking every day, and then for a little bit I was like, okay, they're still not putting it up. And I stopped checking every day, and sure enough, it got up there and sold out every single version like that. So I had to pick it up from eBay. So I picked it up from a seller in Japan. That package is lost in the ether somewhere. I picked it up in maybe mid-December or something, late December. It got to the US, the last tracking was on December 30th, and then nothing. It has vanished into the ether somewhere. So I wound up saying finally, screw it, and kept looking, finally found an eBay seller in the United States that had it on hand, and bought it from the seller in the US. So I've actually bought this freaking thing, just the Japanese version, twice. And one of them, maybe it'll show up someday, but I'm not counting on it. At least now I have that one. And again, worth it, because oh my goodness, the 3D for that opening sequence alone is absolutely jaw-dropping compared to a lot of the other 3D stuff that we have seen in recent memory. Then you have the TV series that are definitely within the MCU, the stuff from Disney+, and they're all being put out in the same pattern as we saw with Mandalorian, Andor, and so on with the Star Wars stuff. So like the 4K steelbooks are just 4K typically. So I have a 4K version of WandaVision, complete series, Falcon and Winter Soldier, complete series, Moon Knight, complete first season. I really do hope they actually get that second season out. Then Hawkeye, complete first season. And then both seasons 1 and 2 of Loki. I haven't cared about also having those on Blu-ray because they're all streaming on Disney+, but 4K is the way I went with those. Then lastly, you got the other Marvel series that were meant to be part of the MCU, and then who the heck knows what's going on with them now. So let's see. So we have Agent Carter did get a first series release, or a first season release in the US, but then they didn't do one in the US for season 2, so I had to pick that up from the UK, but that should wrap those up. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is the one that I know I can get the other seasons from Japan. I'm just wary of it right now. They only got a first season and a second season release in the US for season 3 and 4 and 5. I got those from the UK. And then when you jump to the Netflix stuff, you got Daredevil got a season 1 release on Blu-ray. These are all Blu-ray. And then you've got a season 2 release, but they never put out season 3. And then Jessica Jones got a first season, but never anything beyond that. Luke Cage got his first season put out here. And then Iron Fist got one in the UK, but never in the US. And then there is no, like, Punisher, there is no Defenders. And then, of course, going beyond that, no Runaways, no Inhumans, and so on here. So that pretty much rounds it out. Like, I didn't realize how much stuff it actually is, but as soon as you start taking into account that those films typically were a 4K release and a 3D release, that's a lot of shelf space for 2 per. And it's been a crap ton of movies and TV stuff. And when you start counting in all that stuff that may be multiversal now, yeah, it gets to be quite a bit. But it's just not something that I don't know if I would call this a collection. Like, am I collecting it? One of each? Yes. Or at least one 4K and one 3D of each? Yes. If it's a TV series or something that's only available on Blu-ray, okay, fine. Blu-ray. Yes. But is it a collection in the sense of like what I do with the Star Wars stuff, where I'm very anal retentive, very focused, trying to track everything, keeping an eye on everything, grabbing all the different variants and whatnot? No. But people have asked, I guess assuming that because I'm a fan of Star Wars stuff, I must be a fan of the MCU right now, which I am, but I don't think those two necessarily have to go together. But that is what I have at the moment. And before anyone asks, because I think the other question that comes up most often is, what about your Indiana Jones collection? I really don't have one. The extent of my Indiana Jones collection at this point is that I have that Complete Adventures set that has the first 4 films in it plus a bonus disc, and then that 4 movie collection that has the first 4 films plus a bonus disc. Only reason I still have both of these is I haven't actually taken the time to check to see if the bonus features here are the same as the ones on Blu-ray to decide whether it's redundant or not. And then I have the 4K copy of Dial of Destiny. And beyond that, the only stuff I have for Indiana Jones is because I need it for illustrative purposes with Star Wars stuff. So this is not Indiana Jones, obviously, but I'm not going to go dig it out of our living room. But I do have that AFI Century collection, and there is an Indiana Jones film in the Century collection, so I do have that. It's just in the other room inside that box set, but that's because of Star Wars. Same thing with the Indiana Jones original DVD set that's part of the George Lucas AFI set, which actually means I have several of those, because I think I have 4 of those, I think, of those George Lucas sets. That John Williams set up there, his AFI set includes a Blu-ray copy of Raiders of the Lost Ark, and then when trying to talk about the Star Wars Video 8 releases from Japan and the UK, and the fact that they didn't have them here, I did pick up Temple of Doom on Video 8 as a way of just showing, good lord, that the US actually did have some Video 8 movies, just not Star Wars stuff. So Indiana Jones, I don't see those as necessarily as related of a collecting thing. I do collect Willow. At some point I'll show that. But from the standpoint of Indiana Jones, I was not as into the Young Indiana Jones series. I loved the bonus features that came with those DVD sets back in the day, little documentary type stuff, but that TV series bored the hell out of me. I just could barely get through episodes of Young Indiana Jones. And it's just never been a big thing for me. So, I had VHS, eventually got rid of the VHS when I got the DVDs. With DVDs, aside from the George Lucas ones, got rid of the old DVDs that I just had on the shelves, picked up the films, had the young indie stuff, eventually passed that along, and so on. I don't see myself, even as much as I'm a collector, kind of MCU stuff or Marvel stuff, I'm nowhere near that even for Indiana Jones. So with that said, I hope that answers that burning question out there. What does his Marvel collection look like? And by extension, what does his Indiana Jones collection look like? Nothing like this. But I have stuff because I like to watch it, and they're one of the few things I actually still purposely pick up physically rather than digitally. So I guess that says something about my interest in the MCU. Thanks for watching, and may the... not really the Force. And I don't want to say Terrigen Mists, because that's just bad memories. So, yeah. I hope you enjoyed watching this episode, and maybe that you could do this all day? Hail home video? Yeah, I've got nothing. Thanks for watching.